Hello, this is Pamela, the Divorce Mystic. I'm an over 25-year intuitive attorney, mediator, and coach who's integrated a spiritual practice into my businesses. And today we're bringing in a fairy tale story to our teachings. Would you not agree that the marriage ceremony symbolizes a fairy tale-like journey for most? The union, just like Cinderella slipping into her slipper, her perfectly fitted glass slipper, seems magical at first. The initial stages of most marriages do seem magical. The slipper, metaphorically representing the union, feels like a perfect fit. It radiates love and magic and romanticism and companionship and all the things that we look forward to in that union. However, as time goes on, the individuals change, do they not? And the dynamics of the relationship and the marriage or the union also change. Just as Cinderella, her story did not end with the royal ball. Because there's a union between two people, does not mean that there's an automatic pause or stop button on our individual journeys. We are all on and need to be reminded that we are all on an individual soul's journey. And just because the two come together in a union doesn't mean that the learning stops on the individual soul's level. So at times when people start feeling discomfort, a need to grow and to learn, they can't put their finger on it. It's just something doesn't feel right and they just feel nudged. That is a way that our soul does speak to us in terms of movement on our evolutionary journey. What in fact it means is going to be different for each person, but it's important and it's actually crucial to remember that there is no pause or stop button just because we've engaged in a human construct of marriage. Many people are used to either soothing themselves or choosing to tell themselves stories, such as we have a family, we have children, and therefore we must stay together. We don't want to hurt our children. They forget that the children are witnessing, depending on the level of dysfunction, that the children are witnessing that level of dysfunction. And perhaps a child's fantasy of their future, perhaps having their own union, that's a fairy tale journey, could be shattered or even terminated based on what they're actually witnessing. Marriages that stay together way past their expiration date is no excuse just because there's children. We've all seen that. We can all agree on that. And most of the experts do say that a marriage should end if the dysfunction in the household is damaging to the children. Over time, our soul's nudges get worse. With each nudge, it's stronger and it pushes us further. It becomes sometimes so pronounced that it overshadows any of the initial magic that was there. And, unexpected moments may hit us. Something akin to a Cinderella being struck by midnight, right? It takes us out of our illusion, and it takes us out of our illusion, wanting to take us out of our illusion if we would only listen. But whatever it does is it brings us to a moment of reckoning, and we find it very difficult to wear that metaphorical shoe. So this is not to glorify or to say that divorce is, a wonderful experience. However, it is to say that when you recognize the necessity of growth, when you recognize that each party is on an evolutionary journey that could indicate or could dictate a separation in terms of a divorce, we can look at that divorce more from an elevated perspective. What does that mean? Looking at a divorce from an elevated perspective allows you to see it as a rite of passage for the soul. The soul is on a journey. Part of that journey experienced this union, and now it's moving to its next to its next phase, its next chapter, however you feel comfortable hearing that movement forward. It is a necessity sometimes to move forward. And if we look at it as something that's bad or shameful, or that should be include blame or fear, then of course it's going to be perceived differently. And if it's perceived differently, it's going to turn out differently. But if we look at it as something that's a natural occurrence, it is a human construct to be married. It's a human construct to be divorced, is it not? Our souls belong to ourselves, right? Our souls on that journey doesn't change just because we say the words, I do. We still have to honor our own individual journeys and our own learning and what we are here to explore and experience. So the family itself, if you think about the family itself, it moves on its own passage, its own rite of passage. And if it's allowed to, if it's looked at in terms of a rite of passage rather than something bad or evil, it just simply transforms and evolves in its existence. And once it's elevated and it moves on just like the individuals do on their journey, it's supported. So each person in the family, as well as the family unit itself, is transformed. It's an elevated perspective, an elevated existence from this point forward. And it supports the higher story of the individuals involved as well as the human journey. It's got to be said that the human agreement or soul's agreement or contract with our spouse, our children, our parents, everybody in our life, we have soul contracts with. Most people understand that, at least at a surface level. But what's crucial to understand about that is our contracts or agreements that we have on a soul level are much more complex than anything that our human minds can understand. So if we try to analyze it too much, or we try to understand it from our linear perspective, we're not getting anywhere. If we can understand that the soul level contract came together from an unconditional love and universal perspective, rather than a romanticized human love, which is conditional. Is it not? If we can do that and appreciate the difference between that soul contract that we have on a soul level versus the marital contract that we have on a human level, we can see that we can analyze ourselves to death, but we're never truly going to understand the difference unless we allow ourselves the possibility that it is a possibility. That, wow, just because the human marriage doesn't fit, the slipper doesn't fit. The family is going through a rite of passage. It's moving, so each individual party can move on to their next evolutionary phase, whatever that is. But because we have the need to bond as families and to make sure that our children are okay, and honestly to be sure that the other party is okay. You know, there's if you're looking at things on a soul level, you're not looking at it from, he or she doesn't deserve A, B, or C. You're looking at it as, what can I do in this journey forward through this transition, this rite of passage, to make it smoother for the other party, to make it smoother for the children, and therefore make it smoother for the entire family. When the Cinderella slipper becomes too tight, once a symbol of enchantment becomes a constriction, it's time to read the signs. It's time to read them correctly. It's time to follow the natural flow. And what is the natural flow of our soul? Once we move away from what others expect of us, sometimes what we as humans expect of ourselves, and start following the flow of our soul and really truly understanding what that means. We can bypass all of the human drama that's associated with divorce. And isn't that the best outcome for the children of divorce? Divorce is going to happen. No matter what we do, it's going to happen. Maybe not everybody's going to get a divorce, of course, but those that are on the journey to divorce, it is going to happen. So it behooves all of us to provide a supporting environment for those, elevate our understanding of what could be going on, not just, he or she had an affair, or he or she did this or that, or won't do this or that. That's all human behavior. If we look at it from the perspective of the soul and provide the support that each other or a family, if you're on the outside looking in, may need to make that transition. That is what an elevated perspective is. That's a true holistic divorce. That is one that is going to honor that the family is still a family. It's just in transition. That the slipper may be too tight, it may be constricting, and that's okay. We can loosen it, and we can make it better for all 3 or 4 or however many is in the family if we just look at it from, like I said, the perspective of our soul, from the perspective of our soul contract or agreement that is written in terms or on the foundation of love and not romanticized love that's conditional. We can look at it as waking us simply from our slumber and know that there's jewels to be found in the divorce process for all of us, for all parties involved, not just the parties who are divorcing, but the people, the children and their descendants, but the people that are witnessing the divorce. If you think about asking anybody, you ask anybody, have they ever experienced somebody's divorce? And usually what you'll get is the negative stories. You never get the, this was a smooth transition. I don't know how they did it, but they honored their soul. They honored each other. They honored their children. They didn't fall into the human drama. It's very rare that is the top story of somebody wanting to share. So don't fall for that. If it's time and the marriage is at a place of dissolving, do whatever you can to look at it from the perspective of the fairy tale is a human construct. The larger fairy tale is our soul contract, our soul's journey, our own evolutionary journey. Some of that we share with others, and some of that we walk separately. And sometimes we dance between the two. Wherever you are, wherever you find yourself, just be sure to analyze the soul nudges properly. And if you need help, seek the help that you need, of course. But if you are going to step on the journey of divorce, do it lightly, do it with clarity, and do it from a higher perspective, if you can. And if you need support, there's people like me who can coach you through it. But that's the greatest gift that you can give yourself, your children, your family, and those coming up behind you. It is very, very clear that many marriages will terminate in divorce. They will be dissolved in divorce. This age of awakening is causing many to be knocked out of their slumber, awakened from their slumber. And when that happens, sometimes that is the marriage that ends. Sometimes it's just a pivot. And that's why I say to read the nudges correctly. But if you are at that point where you know that if I stay or should I go, the answer to should I stay or should I go becomes I must go. I must go now, before, and sometimes fill in the blank, before we become enemies, before somebody gets hurt, before things are said that can't be taken back, before there's more damage to our children, whatever that blank is for you, honor it and seek the help that you need and do what's right. But always know You've got this. No matter what, all is well with your soul. So if you do what's in your heart that you know is right, it will always work out for the highest good of all involved. Be true to you. Until we meet again, namaste.